Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 151st video on my video journal series. Today's date is Thursday, the 9th of July 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you, and I thought I'd make a follow-up to my video on my life as an introvert, with this video, my life as an extrovert. Now, I certainly do classify myself to be a bit on the extroverted side nowadays, but when I was younger, I certainly was an introvert. And obviously, it took some time to improve my communication skills, talking to strangers, even family and friends. But I found myself to be a lot better than I was, let's say, a decade ago. And obviously, that comes with age. But throughout my life as an extrovert, I've noticed that obviously you'll be able to communicate a lot more effectively. You share a lot of ideas with all sorts of people. You generally have a positive image, but I say that not all extroverts have to be happy and speaking very loudly and fast. Sometimes they just have a lot to say. They really have a, thorough, argument or conversation with someone. And, those with the smartest style of ideas aren't always the loudest. I've heard that quite a few times, but it certainly is true. Some of the world's smartest people are, I guess, a bit more on the introverted side, whilst not every extrovert is, I guess, the most knowledgeable. I think we can name a few people in the world right now, who have a very high position of authority, but aren't necessarily the most knowledgeable. But let's just leave it there. Oh god, that's just a timeless issue. But anyway, so yeah, my life is a bit on the extroverted side. Certainly, it does come with some benefits like being able to speak more clearly, have more confidence in yourself. But yet again, though, there are like some drawbacks to it. Yet again, it's not an inherent like burden or benefit. Rather, it's more like a characteristic, and at least within my eyes. And I guess one thing that like sort of drags it down is that you often overthink, um, you know, how to express certain things or how to express certain ideas to certain groups of people. Like sometimes I'm like, all right, well, am I just talking too much? When should I end the conversation? Have I expressed this idea in a very clear way? Has the person misunderstood what I said? You often think about the ins and outs of a conversation way too much, and I've certainly felt that. Whenever I'm having a conversation, I'm trying to put this into very simple words, but not too simple. But yet again, though, I want to make sure the person I'm speaking to understands exactly what I say. Sometimes I'm like, all right, is this person just disinterested in conversation? Should I just shut up there? And you don't want to be in a conversation with someone and you keep on interrupting each other unintentionally. I've always found that to be an issue with me, like I'm speaking to someone, we stay silent for a few seconds, then I'm about to say something, but then they say something, and I'm like, oh, you go ahead, but no, you go ahead, because that's a polite thing, and you end up going back and forward, and you end up wasting time. That precious time could have been used for more conversation time, and a lot of ideas are lost or left out due to time. I'm overthinking this, but it really is an issue. And obviously, timing is a very big thing within having a conversation. Knowing when to speak, knowing when to listen, and I guess a problem I've always found was just being able to time things, and also just I guess like reading the room and just like, all right, this person is clearly more relaxed, maybe I should speak in a much more softer and I guess slower tone. Meanwhile, this person's very energetic, I can speak in a very fast tone and seem very happy. But sometimes I think of my image and I'm like, all right, well, should I keep the happy persona up or should I just like chill things down a bit, because when people view as all happy and energetic, you're going to keep that image up, which I've always, hated. People should just be true to themselves. And certainly when you're extroverted, you do get like attention, good and bad attention, depends on what your actions are. But there are yet again, some days where I'm just like, all right, I don't want the attention, when a teacher notices you're talking a lot and participating a lot in discussions, they expect more of you. And I'm like, I don't want those expectations, because it forces me into like, I know on paper this sounds like a good thing, but in practice it isn't, where it forces you to live up to those expectations. Like, oh, it's always good to reach for the top, to do well and constantly to improve upon yourself. But, having those expectations and then, making a slight, you know, miscalculation or a slip up, everyone just views you differently now. I've always hated that, that was really evident in school, high school particularly, senior year of high school, where if you, participate a lot in class discussion, which is a good thing, but, the teacher assumes, oh, you're knowledgeable, so you should do well on the exam, but then you don't, and then you feel like, oh, I made a fool out of myself, and you're like, oh, why can't I not just be the silent kid during class, just does his work, doesn't stand out, but his grades are okay, even like quite good. And I certainly felt that. I know I keep on saying that, but yet again, it's my experience. And certainly, in those type of situations, right, there's nothing wrong with being, very expressive with your ideas and talking a lot. In fact, they actually say that, I've heard this on the internet, I don't know if it's true or not, that the people who tend to live the longest of lives are the most talkative of people. I don't know if that's, based on science or whatever. Most likely isn't, but I guess it's like a saying. And maybe there is like some correlation, not causation, but correlation that, people who tend to be the most outgoing live, I guess, more joyful lives. It's a reflection of their character. And certainly, we all have stories to tell, and I feel like when you're a bit on the extroverted side, you can tell those stories in a very compelling and funny way, and you get everyone's attention. Like I don't think there's such thing as an introverted comedian. Maybe someone who writes jokes, but if you're a comedian, you have to be a bit on the extroverted side. You have to be able to tell jokes in front of thousands of people, and they all have to understand, or at least be able to understand what's going on within that joke. Like, that's why crafting a joke, I know I'm going a bit off track here, but that's why crafting a joke really is an art in of itself. You could, obviously there is satire, which is basically criticizing something in the form of a comedic undertone, which is like a very intricate process, right? You have to like be able to convey a message or convey an idea, or just an argument essentially to thousands of people, and they all have to be able to get it so then they can laugh. So that's just my little, I guess, tangent, but yeah, it is true. So yeah, extroverts will know how to be able to tell a message in front of thousands of people who all have different backgrounds, and all of them are like different genders, age. They should be able to resonate with that. So yeah, that's why extroverts will know how to like clearly, at least have a grip on how to communicate effectively in front of like groups of people, because it is an art in of itself. And certainly, I think this video journal series has greatly improved upon my communication skills. Certainly made me a lot more comfortable appearing on camera. Before, I didn't really appear on camera. And I was always, just scared that I'll like fumble up my words and all of that. And certainly when I like do like meet and greet, let me rephrase this. I'm not that famous where I'm like meeting my fans and all that. Like, I only have like 3 subscribers, but I mean, like, whenever I go to a meet and greet of like a famous celebrity or whatever, I always like stutter. I'm like, because I'm not like a fanboy or anything, but I'm like, all right, well, I always think of the worst possible scenario that can happen, like me being able to not say anything, and that usually happens. Because you respect this person, right? They've contributed towards a specific art that you like. They've been influential in your life, and then you just suddenly placed in front of them, and you're like, all right, how do I communicate again? But yet again, though, being extroverted, I guess just means you have a lot more confidence. Or at least I felt like since I've been extroverted, I have a lot more confidence within myself. Going to conventions and all that. You can ask. Like conventions is really the only place where you can ask people around you politely, mind you, with consent. Hey, can I take a photo with you without sounding too weird? Because like it really is weird though. Like if you were to do that on the street, people would think obviously, like why is this random guy asking me to take a photo with me? But like at a convention, if someone's dressed up in a cosplay of a character you like, that's more socially acceptable. But yet again, though, with consent and obviously with the consent of all parties involved and doing it politely, obviously. But yeah, you can go up to people and ask people simple questions or even directions. How to go to this place and all that. And even in um, even in when I used to work in fast food and retail, that greatly helped improve my communication skills. But when you work in those industries, you certainly do feel like, oh, I wish I was introverted because sometimes you just have enough with speaking with customers. But being extroverted means yeah, I can have a very good conversation with this person. Um, being extroverted allows you to gain these communication skills where you can have like a conversation with someone who you don't even know. You never met this person in your life, but yet you feel like a flow. You feel like there's like a personal link during that conversation. And where you from, what do you do for work and all of that. One of those like dad conversations, like when you're with your dad and you go to like a birthday party of a kid that and the two dads start talking to each other. That's basically it. The dad conversation, at the barbecue with the plaid shirt, jeans. And he's like, oh yeah, my name's Jeff. What do you do for work? I don't know why I'm doing a broken Texan accent, but it's the first thing that pops into my mind. Those dad conversations. But yeah, and I guess I'll focus a bit on my personal life. But yeah, with my personal life, I do like being able to talk to people, even strangers and all that, because it helps me gain confidence, and certainly, it will be beneficial if you want to look for a job, be able to ace a job interview. But yet again, though, don't feel like you have to become extroverted or you have to become introverted. Just be you. Certainly with me, yet again, I do classify myself to be a bit on the extroverted side, to be a bit more outgoing, to be a bit more talkative and all that. But yet again, though, I can just accept who I am. Like, I accept that some days you just want to be left alone. And the fact that, doesn't really matter if you're one or the other. We can all learn something from ourselves and different groups of people. And there is no problem between some days being extroverted and some days being introverted. Certainly nothing wrong with that. It's all human nature. And, like I said, even though I do feel outgoing now, I don't know how I'll be when I'm older. Typically, when people are older, they do tend to be a bit more on the introverted side of things because they're near towards the end of their life. I'm talking about people in their 80s. And actually, wait, hold on. Would that make sense though? It depends what, I guess, age group you are. I guess when you're young, you tend to be more outgoing. maybe when you're like an adult, you tend to be a bit more introverted. But I feel like when you get to like a certain age, maybe when you're like, maybe in your like 50s and 60s, you're introverted. But I feel like when you're like 80, you do want people to talk to you because, obviously, that's the age where you might go to like a retirement home, not be able to talk with your family for a long time, unfortunately. I feel like when you're 80, you do lean a bit more on the extroverted side, because you're basically wanting people to talk to, So yeah, you do, like, within my head, it does make sense that you sort of alternate between introvert and extrovert throughout different stages of your life. Can anyone back me up on this? Any old people watching? Because I do feel like, you could be, 50 and 60, I guess a bit more on the introverted side, but when you reach 80, you suddenly want people to talk to. And I guess it all depends on personal circumstances. Me, I'm 20 years old. Obviously, I do want to build up social connections. I do want to make friends. I have a lot more of the world to explore, right? I got decades and decades worth of life left. And yeah, like obviously I need to start building up my future now. I like talking to people around me. Life has only begun. I feel like once you turned 18, you just completed the tutorial of life, and when you hit 18, that's when the main game starts. I know that sounds really dumb, and it really is, but if I have to put in video game terms, that's what my life has basically felt like, Um, uh, at least, like, that's what my mom has always told me. She's not a gamer, but she always says, Josh, life always starts when you hit when you hit adulthood, And she says, oh, that's when you start paying taxes and have real world issues and all that. But I'm like, all right, well, stop ranting. At least give me some hope and chance, Like, that's what adults will just complain about, taxes. At least my mom, tax, tax, tax. Um, but getting back on track, if I really had to end this video, my life as an extrovert, you know, has basically consisted of me just being more outgoing and being able to really explore and being able to talk to people and getting to know people well, even people who I've never met before. And yet again, though, it's just that art of, going up to someone, having a conversation, and just being able to sustain it. And I guess this just, isn't inherently, um, you know, a characteristic of being extroverted. It's just part of building up a good conversation, and you know, like I just like being able to talk to you, being able to talk to a camera, and being able to share my stories with people all around the world, and being able to talk to people, not being, I guess, you know, not stuttering every single time I want to speak, and standing up for myself. Yes, that's another point, standing up for yourself. If you see an issue, to stand up for it. If someone's treating you in a way that you don't like, you stand up for it. Being able to clearly express your ideas and all that. But yet again, though, sometimes I'm like, all right, when do I stop when do I stop talking? Am I going on for too long? Am I just boring everyone? Or am I just too obnoxious? How do I adjust my, I guess, tone towards this person's, I guess, liking? Because obviously you approach people in different ways to grab their interest. So yeah, those are certainly some of the things I felt in my life as being an extrovert. But yet again, don't feel pressured into becoming someone who you aren't. We all need to embrace ourselves, even if it just means embracing the fact that might not be able to clearly communicate to another person as, the person next to you, for instance. Oh, that person, he's doing very well in that conversation. I wish I could be like him. Don't think about that, because everyone's got their own, set of characteristics, and it's something we should embrace, not really frown upon. And it doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert. We should be able to all at least um, communicate in one way or another. It doesn't always have to be verbal. It can also be written, and in other ways, our stories and ideas with people all around this earth. And I know this seems like a generic conclusion, however, it's something I firmly believe in. And obviously, who knows where the future will take me. Maybe I'll be a bit more reserved towards the end of this series. Certainly those who are, um, I guess, you know, I guess when you gain more popularity in life, take a look at celebrities and all that. Sometimes they lean a bit on the introverted side because of privacy. And I'm certainly not, celebrity by any metric, but yet again, no. Um, like I feel like if you were to just constantly get, you know, just a what's the word, like large, like if you were to just constantly get large crowds everywhere and getting constantly recognized in public, that's a great thing, being able to talk to people. But you do sort of like wish to go back to a more, I guess, introverted life and just having some downtime to yourself. But yet again, that's just life becoming popular. You can do a lot to, I guess, influence the world and really express your ideas and being able to talk to people, and people saying, oh, you've changed my life, you greatly inspired me to do this. That's great. But some days you just wish you can go down to McDonald's and get burger without being swarmed by paparazzi. But yeah, anyway, that's enough of my rant or life story. Who knows? Could be either one of those categories about being on the extroverted side, and what I felt my life has become being an extrovert. But anyway, yeah. So I'm recording this on a Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday. Listen, I'll try to go to the city and grab a few more shots and um, you know pictures and videos of the city, and obviously that'll go towards my Sydney a work in progress project. I want these, I guess, clips to be a lot more diverse than my previous ones. So that's something I've been working on, and obviously I got that Detective Conan movie on Saturday, and I'll be doing my thoughts on that movie after I leave the theaters, and hopefully I'll make it home in time, to write down everything. If not, then I could always do it on Sunday, but I feel like doing it on Saturday right after I've seen the movie will make a lot more sense. But anyway, so that's been, that's pretty much my agenda for the rest of the week. But yeah, yet again, thanks for watching, and I guess I'll catch you all next time. Bye, see you, take care. Catch you all tomorrow.